The Sanguinarian Id. Hale followed the path Cale took to the caverns. Heavy rain dominated the weather for the rest of the week. The combat boots she wore sank 5 inches deep into the mud and softened to leaves. Other deep footprints imprinted the soil leading to the grove. The pond's water level rose and caused the area to flood. The water was black. The ends of the banks mixed with the silt. She moved steadily into the pond. The texture of the water seemed odd to her as she moved inward. The water was like viscous slime as it swirled and wrapped around her. Something caught her foot. She moved her hand down her leg to grab her boot. She couldn't decipher what latched onto her. It seemed like an odd, old root. It wrapped around her ankle. Its edges were hard and pointy. Her fingers kept slipping because of her gloves. She pulled her glove off between her teeth and pushed her hand under the root. The rain fell harder. "Come on," she said, jerking her arm. She snapped the root in half and pulled her leg to the surface. She climbed up the boulder and tried to push away the top rock that concealed the entrance. It didn't move. She tried again. The rock would not budge. She kicked the rock and shouted, "Is anyone down there? Can anybody hear me?" The rain fell harder. She shouted again, "Can someone push from the other side?" Her voice dissipated under the rain. Someone screamed, "Help me!" Hale darted around. A gargled voice strained from the other side of the rock. "Help me!" She slid down the boulders. Her legs sunk into the ground below. "Please, where are you?" a man cried. "I need help." "Hang on." Hale searched around the boulder. No one was there. "I can't find you." "I'm over here," he called out. She ran back around. From the furthest corner of the rocks, a man bobbed in the water. He was struggling to keep his head above the oozing mud. He waved to her. "I'm here." She moved closer to him. "I've got you," she said, grabbing his arms and shirt collar. His mouth gaped open in terror. Wait, he screamed. "What?" "I can't move any farther," he told her. "I'm stuck." "On what?" she asked. "Under the rock," he replied. "I'm stuck under the rock." "How did this happen?" "Never mind how. Listen carefully. I need you to dig under me and pull out my legs." With a fervent nod, she slid next to him. She clawed her hands through the mud. "Did you reach them yet?" he asked. "Not yet." "Please, hurry." Hale was up to her ears in mud. She felt his pant leg. "I got it." "Pull." She pulled hard. "My hands keep slipping." The man's legs were wedged deep under the rocks. "Please," pleading, he twisted his fingers around her sleeve. "You can't give up." "I can try something, but it's gonna hurt." "Do it." He gave her the green light. She dug her claws into his leg. His voice cracked from screaming. She secured her footing and pulled him slowly towards the bank. "Wait," he cried. "I can't do it. It's too painful." She let go, his body slowly receding back to its original position. "What do you want me to do?" "I need to think," he replied. She kneeled in the mud and waited for his request. He drummed his fingers frantically on the top of his head. His chest trembled as he sobbed to himself. The area was a deluge. Hale watched the pond swell as the water engulfed more and more of the bank. "If you keep stalling, you're going to drown," she shouted. "Let me pull you up." Air bubbles popped alongside the boulder surface. The man shuddered at the sound. He looked behind him. "Did you hear that?" he asked. She shrugged her shoulders. An air pocket must have ruptured below the mud. She looked at the surface of the water. The mud continued to bubble. The water level rose rapidly. "Please, let me pull you up." His eyes bulged like soup plates at the sight of the bubbling mud. The mud stopped moving. He turned towards her. "Leave." "What about your legs?" "Forget about my legs," he shouted. "Just get the fuck out of here." She ignored his statement and waded towards him. He unsheathed his Bowie knife and swung it wildly in the air. "Go away, damn it, go away," he threatened. "Are you crazy?" she shouted. He began to cry. "Please, just leave." A gurgling sound erupted from beneath the water. It was deep and loud. The man gaped in fear. With his face pale to a paper white, his mouth opened and closed in horror like a dying guppy. The noise increased in volume, morphing into a horrid, watery groan. He tossed his knife at her feet. She grabbed onto his arms to pull him out. The man made no effort to move. She sank her feet into the mud and pulled. "Please, help me help you." He lifted his head up to her. His eyes were drenched in tears and wide with anguish. His mouth quivered sorely. If you want to help me, heed the words of this old fool. Leave this place. Forget about me. Forget you ever came here. Forget your reason why and get to the closest source of concrete. He grabbed her hand. Take the knife. Stay away from the water banks. Those were his last words. His body was yanked underneath the boulder. The pull's tension and the sharpness of her claws severed the man's hand from his body. She flew backward. The severed hand fell into her lap. The air thickened with danger. She flung the hand back into the water. Something swallowed it from beneath the surface. Screaming, she grabbed the knife and ran from the boulders. The hard rain loosened the soil around the trees. Roots were exposed over the ground. She bounded over them to avoid getting caught. A lightning bolt crashed in the distance. She tripped and plummeted to the banks. An exposed tree root slammed against her head when she hit the ground. Half her face sank into mud. She nearly stumbled back into the water as she hoisted herself out of the sludge. She searched for the knife. It was lodged underneath a tree root. The mud bubbled around her feet. The ground swallowed the knife. She jumped back and ran. The earth caved in everywhere she stepped. The further she ran out of the grove, the more the ground sank around her. She vaulted over new forming holes big enough to fit a torso. Her foot was caught. She struggled to pull herself out, but the force of the suction engulfed her entire leg. She searched for something to free herself with. She reached over and grabbed an entanglement of roots. The roots snapped down onto her palm. Her bones crunched. She yelled. Globs of soil and gravel clung to her. Something sucked her arm deep into the earth. Her limbs were captive under the ground. She was rendered helpless. She looked towards the night sky, a prayer forming on her lips. Help me, God. A groaning emerged from below. Gobs of mud popped in her face. A deep voice spoke to her. I was beginning to wonder when you were going to beg. A hand rose and clutched Hale's ribcage. Mendelsohn emerged from the ground. Clumps of black soil fell from his hair and face. He cracked his knuckles and grabbed the back of her head. It's funny, he said. At first I thought it would be amusing to hear another damper beg for its life. He squeezed her head. But hearing you plead sours my taste buds. She spat in his face. He chuckled. Inches away from a potential death boy, and you still aim to disgruntle your attacker? You'll do perfectly. He slammed her forehead against a gnarled tree root. She blacked out.